The U.S. economy has officially entered into the territory of spending more than it makes in an annual year. $38 trillion is being spent this year, surpassing all of our GDP. And this is coming from the stable genius elected in the last election. Let's talk about what the national debt is and what it means for you and your wealth generation hopes for the future, right here, right now on the Ujamaa Network. So, this is a layman's introduction to what the GDP is. That's our gross domestic product. That is the total amount of money generated by a country. What we sell, what we earn, what we make, what we import, what we export, what we invest in, and what we spend all this money on. This all factors in to what we call GDP, our gross domestic product. Now, in order to get that, we have to add up everything we made, what we spend as a household um, throughout the country, what businesses build. It's like these data centers are being built, what they're investing in. Housing is another big one. Durable equipment, our military equipment, our caterpillars, our heavy industrial stuff. Government spending is a big part of it. What we spend it on as far as our goods and services like Medicare, Medicaid, exports, what we sell to other countries. Mainly in the United States, we sell a lot of agriculture to some markets. Finally, we subtract from our GDP what we import. It means what we are bringing into this country from other places. Everything is our trade. Trade has been taking a hit in this current administration. Why do I say that? Well, the Trump administration attempted to enact tariffs on what is brought into this country. What does that do to our GDP? Well, let's look at it. If we are telling our trade partners that we're going to put a tariff, that means money we're going to add to your product coming into this country, you are going to pay the United States. This was the theory. But the Trump administration is kind of brain dead economically, and he was being told this by the Federal Reserve chairs. And as much as the goal was to kind of even out the trade deficits that we've had with other countries, this is not how you do it. Because when you add tariffs to the products coming in, the increased costs on those products are not paid by those foreign countries. It's passed on to us, the customer. So, in GDP terms, that means what we spend on those goods that we bring in has just gone up. That is the first part of GDP, what we consume. Americans cannot afford increased costs. So when there's increased costs, we scale back on our consumption. Not because we want to, because we can't afford it. So we cannot buy as much of those consumables as we need. So that's impacting our GDP. Another thing. So let's think of it this way. We're paying more for gasoline. We're paying more for food. We're paying more for every good that we bring into the country, particularly those import cars we like. That has an effect. And that's due to one thing and one thing only. Those are those policies. And this is just not some random stuff that I'm spitballing here. You have to be able to look at the different parts of what's going in. Now, how does that affect our national debt? National debt is basically the amount of money we bring in annually as a country versus what we're spending. And this is where it gets nasty. The United States this year brought in around $31 trillion. Unfortunately, we're spending close to $32 trillion. For the first time since World War II, we're spending more than we take in. And this is only going to get worse because of what we just talked about. The fact that one of the 5 parts of our gross domestic product, our consumption, is going down. The other part of it, housing, the investment, inventory of what we have in stock. What's happening in the inventory in the housing market right now? Are people buying houses? Stagflation is a word that was just used by the federal chair, Jerome Powell. Costs are going up. Wages are not. People can't afford homes. Affordability is an issue. With affordability being an issue, that's another drop in consumer confidence. But we are building, companies are at least, AI hubs. So there is what's going on there. They're investing into AI, buying up large swaths of land with money coming from that investment class. These are the corporations, buildings, equipment, inventory. What are they buying? Well, I can tell you right now as an IT specialist, those data centers are filled with lots of chips. Where are we getting our chips from? Taiwan. NVIDIA is a major company in the United States. It costs money to bring those over. Are we paying tariffs on those? You're going to have to look at that tariff policy. Is there a shortage? What does the supply chain look like? What other equipment are we getting? Is it made in the United States? No. That's a problem. So at the same time, businesses are investing in equipment, particularly for these data centers. The money is being spent, but where is it going? Again, the economy is in a mess. It's in a mess. Looking at the numbers, you would think that someone would have a better hold on this. And again, you don't have to be an expert at this to understand that money going out has to at least equal money coming in. If we're spending more than we're taking in, we are in a world of hurt. This is unsustainable. So understand these graphs that I'm putting up of how this is affecting you. Now, of course, we just talked about what's going on and how it's affecting us. People can't afford jobs. Also, what drives the income of most Americans? Well, our paychecks. What do we spend our paychecks on? We spend them on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That's 49% of what this country spends its revenue on. These are things that add to the deficit. Why is it that the government, particularly Congress and the Republican Party, keeps wanting to make cuts to Social Security? Because we spend, as a nation, 49% of our tax revenue. That's the money we spend out of our paychecks. The money that's collected directly out of every one of our paychecks goes to the federal government. And that portion of our tax revenue, 50% of it goes to those 3 social programs. The Republicans want to cut that as a means to paying down the national debt, so they say. But those services are needed by the American people, particularly when you lay off or terminate the jobs of over 300,000 people in one demographic, as was the case with African American women following this last slate of DEI. It gets worse. AI is making a lot of people hit the unemployment lines. The hundreds of thousands of jobs that were lost in the tech sector. These people cannot find those kind of jobs. Where are they going to turn to get more income, to buy the consumables that we have? Our rent, our food, our gas. They're out of work. Or they're doing stuff like this. You got to generate some income some kind of way. And if you're losing more income, taxable income, what is that doing to your GDP? What is that doing to your consumption? We're not spending money on this stuff because there's no money to spend. In fact, the the things that the government is spending on those social programs is being hit harder because you have more people consuming those services. It's a cyclical effect. This is only the tip of the iceberg. Understand those key features. And this is all GDP. The national debt is the amount of money that we spend versus what we take in. This year, $31 trillion is being spent. We are approaching 100% of our annual gross domestic product being spent on what we already owe. This is unsustainable. This is how you bankrupt a casino.